God. I'm so sick. I should be laying down. My cold medicine is like making my brain unbrain. What am I doing with my life?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
So, I totally lost my notes on what I was going to talk about because I'm a professional writer. Woo! So, NaNoWriMo's coming up. Good luck, you poor souls. And something that I've been thinking about a lot is writing identity. And this can come out in a lot of ways. I was having a conversation with a peer of mine. I'm in a graduate writing program. It's not necessarily like an MFA, but somewhat adjacent because you can do creative writing if you want. And he talked about how he felt like anyone who like writes, even if you just write like a thing on like a grocery whatever. Do people write things anymore like on paper? Okay. So anyway, he's like even that person considers themselves professional, and his reasoning was that in our program there's a lot of people who don't consider themselves professional, and in this kind of way that like puts themselves down. And he's like, no, you should own it. And while I felt like I think people should, own being a writer and not, have like this high standard, like, oh, if, I haven't published a book, I'm not a writer. Like, no, even if you just like have written a page, or, you have major writer's block or whatever, you're still a writer. But I kind of, like, I don't really agree that, like, you should consider yourself professional. And it's not that I'm like, oh, if you haven't reached a certain bar. Like, I don't know what the bar is for being a professional writer. Like, it's not that, but I feel like we sort of forget or even put down people who just write for fun, who are hobbyist writers, who don't plan on being published. And I feel like, and I understand that in a professional writing program, like, it's kind of like, well, if you're in this, if you're a writer, why wouldn't you want to do it professionally? But like some of those people are people who are, are considered, non-traditional students, who are people who have had jobs, who are retired or, looking to retire. And they're like, I've always wanted to write, but I never had the chance. I never really had an excuse. I didn't have like a workshop where it's like, oh, I have to write 10 pages. I didn't have that kind of motivation. And so I kind of want to, try it out. I want to try out creative nonfiction or, screenplay writing. Things that I never got the opportunity, or it's simply an excuse. Whereas here at a class, it's like, well, I got to write this. And overall, like, I just feel like writers, whether you just write for fun, or you want to get published, or you have certain deadlines or whatever, a little bit of both, you're valid, and you shouldn't worry about labels so much. But what I really wanted to talk about, and again, I'll bring it back to NaNoWriMo, and it's something I see a lot, is that, of course, like in NaNoWriMo, you have those badges, right? Where it's like pantsing, plotting, and then planting, which planting, just sounds a little odd to me. But anyway, it's like you pick the certain identity, and I know people who are just like so like dead set on their like their process as identity. Like even you read like someone like Stephen King, who says like if you outlining is like a last resort, or wow, words. It's a first resort for people who are boring or something like that. And so for him, it's like, no, this is the way I write. And I believe he even has like, oh, this is the process I go through for like everything I write. And it reminds me of like, so there's those videos by Kate Kavanaugh, who is, you know, Kate Kavanaugh, I can talk. Words are easy. I can enunciate, but she has the, and I love her content. It's certainly much better than this content, but she does these videos I really enjoy, like Stephen King and Neil Gaiman, Nora Roberts. Like for one day, I'm gonna do their process, from writing from these certain times to like baking bread, which is interesting. Nora, very interesting person, but and I remember, Kate, she said something like, I'm hoping that, through exploring these processes, I kind of make my own process, which might be kind of a collaboration of all these. And I don't know, and I'm not criticizing her because I think her videos it's a really good experiment and it's also super entertaining. But I feel like there's this pressure on writers, like, I need a process, and it can be, I'm not saying, like, you shouldn't have a process, but it can be really frustrating because you haven't found, like, okay, I tried doing, writing 1,000 words a day, or writing during this certain time. Like, oh, I only, like certain authors, it's like, oh, I write in the morning or I write at night. And it's like, oh, I've tried these things and it just doesn't mesh with me. And I'm struggling and not getting it done. And I feel bad. And I just need that one process. I need to figure out what works for me and stick to it. And this is, again, this is just my personal experience, but I would say don't get married to a process and don't like make it your whole identity. Like, oh, and I have an issue with like calling it plotting because I feel like I just think we should say like outlining or outliners because outlining isn't necessarily like obviously plot is involved, but it's not just plot. It's character and story, and like the story is like character and plot, but in themes, like I feel like it's a misnomer to just say plotting, but people feel like I know people who are like, I gotta outline, this certain way. I gotta do like the snowflake method, which I've never tried, or it has to be, in 3 acts. It's just kind of loosely how I sometimes do it. It has to be in 5 acts. It has to be this method every time. It has to be, or I never outline. And again, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. Like, if you have a process that works for you and it's fine, and every time it works, like, that's incredible. And I think you should write however you want to write. But an issue I have with all this is that, like, I guess for me, and again, this is, as I said before, it's my personal experience, is that I don't have a single process. In fact, I tried, but it's like, I feel like every book comes with its own need, so to speak. Like, if I'm writing like this really like there's a book I'm working on right now, which is basically a novella, but it's a very like short, like thriller, like kind of like a punch, like a very like just in and out, like it hits you hard and then it's gone. And like making that like, and doing the character development is much different than like I have this contemporary fantasy story with like 4 characters. It's very like winding, and it's over 100,000 words, and I'm going to have to revise this 100,000 words, but like that has a different need. Or if I did like an epic fantasy and the amount of world building I would have to do, it's like each book demands a different process. So when people like ask me like, what's your process? Do you outline? Do you don't outline? It's like, well, it depends. And I just feel like if I were married to a certain like process, and I tried like when I wrote my book Dove Keeper, and then I got Rabbit Heart over there, hey, it's published. Not that you have to buy it or anything, even though it would mean a lot to me. But anyway, and oh, by the way, that book took 17 drafts since 2012 to write. But again, like that book demanded like a different like thing from me than something like Dove Keeper, or the contemporary fantasy I'm working on, or thriller I'm working on, like, and the epic fantasy thing I'm attempting. Like, they all demand something different from me. There are different focuses. There's a different way like I break things down. And I would say that the only like thing that's like consistent is that I always try to get the character in conflict. Like, what does the character want and how do they change it in the story? Like, I always try to get that down. So even like with some stories where I just kind of like fly by the seat of my pants, like I have this like general idea, like, okay, I need to meet this point. I'm not sure exactly on the specifics, but it has all come together in this way, because for me, like, scenes should all kind of like build to something. But that's why I just feel like if I tried for all my stories to like do the exact same thing, like, which I've tried, like, I just feel like I wouldn't get anything done. I would, because it might not work for a certain story and I'd get discouraged. And some stories like Birds in a Cage. I literally wrote the outline in 30 minutes and I mostly followed it, and that was done in like 2 months. That was a breeze. And then you have books like Rabbit Heart, where it took like English major doing math here. It took 7 years. Oh God, 17 drafts. So, and that's kind of like what it needed. And also, I want to mention that I didn't just like work on that one book, like I did multiple projects. In fact, I feel like if I hadn't done Dovekeeper and written that, I wouldn't have had like the storytelling tools to go back and do kind of like older works that I shelved because I was frustrated and not sure how to deal with the character conflict and resolving it all. So, yeah, I think that's about it. What I just really want to get across from you, like, yeah, words, enunciation, blah, blah, blah. What I want to get across is that don't feel like you have to find like this one process that works for you. Like, I have to always, outline, do a scene by scene intricate outline, or oh no, I can't even do a single thing. Like, I just feel like, books are very organic, and of course, people, differ a lot, and yeah, just do you. Oh, yeah, and just because, like, I know this dude who he's like a huge Stephen King fan, and yeah, I mean, I like Stephen King. I had like from when I was 9 years old to like when I was 14, I had like this huge like Stephen King thing where I would just read. I binged like so many stories of his, and now I haven't like picked up any of his stuff since. Although I did watch some of the movies. Gerald's Game, great movie. Never watched the yeah, I never watched the book. I also never read the book. But yeah, he's a huge Stephen King fan, and he like wrote something like, or rather, Stephen King wrote something in his book on writing about how I don't know if this is exactly how he phrased it. I want to be generous, but essentially, like, real writers like write 2,000 words a day, and there's a lot of a lot of sites like, oh, you need to reach like this threshold. This is another thing, and like when we talk about like routine and, oh, how many words should I write in a day? Like, how should I structure my time? Like, it's like my friend, he was like, well, Stephen King writes 2,000 words a day, so in order to be a real writer, I have to do it like this. And I'm just like, guys, don't let like absolutely anyone tell you like, oh, if you're a real writer, you got to do this process, or you're not a real writer, or you got to do this, you got to outline this way, and if you do this way, it's wrong, it's not real writing. And I do think, like, I sort of side a little of Lisa Crone, even though she is, I think, very like more prescriptive than me. Where I do think, having kind of a plan, even if it's just like this broader plan, like I talked about, where like the character conflicts and what they want and where they'll end up. I do think that's important, because I do have a fear that if you don't do that, then it's just basically, and like I've done that where I just kind of like made a story like just out of like, it was like Frankenstein's monster. I wrote all this stuff, it just kind of came out, and then I tried to stitch it all together, and it can like have the like problem of you have to do a lot of rewriting, and it can be very painful, and it can also suck if, like, say you didn't think about these things and you've written like 400 pages, and it's like, I might, like, for me, like, there are books where I literally, like, threw out the draft and I rewrote it from scratch. Like, I didn't even look at the old draft. Like, that was like 80,000 words I wrote. And it's like, no, I'm just like rebuilding it. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and a lot of, like, we'll be honest, like, it takes a lot of, like, emotional, like, what's the word I was thinking of? Mental and even physical effort to do that. And like, which all like that matters. And so I do fear like that too much, like flying out the seat of your pants can lead to a lot of stress. But at the same time, I think we need to respect that everyone's different, everyone has a thing that like works for them. And hey, like, you might do this one like strategy for one book, and you might realize, well, I'm doing this other book and I'm trying to like supplant, like, I'm trying to force like this way I wrote that one book, onto this book, and oh, hey, like, it's not working. Like, just I think it's important to just step back and think like, okay, is the method I'm using really working? Do I really need to have this like one way to approach everything? And don't feel like, if I don't have this one like identity, like I can't label myself as a plotter or a pantser or whatever, like, oh, I failed, I'm not a real writer, of like who, like, if I'm at a Q&A, I could say like, this is my method, I bake bread before I write and all that. So yeah, don't let people tell you what you can and can't do. I say in a video where I'm telling you like what you should do.